Hey everybody, I'm Sam Brace. I am the Product Education Manager for Cloudinary, and I'm joined here with
Daniel, and I'm part of the dev support team.
And what we're going to be showing you here today is how to take a flat image that you would be uploading into Cloudinary and being able to turn it into something that looks slightly three-dimensional, actually attached to a canvas. And there's lots of different reasons why you might want to take this type of a transformation. The first one that I can think of right off the top of my head is you're an artist, and maybe you want to be able to show your artwork as it would look like in somebody's home with a nice framing in a canvas style.
Yeah, there's also picture framing companies. They want to show a range of options that they have available.
Exactly, and then of course interior decorators might have similar reasons to all of those, wanting to be able to mock up a room design with some canvases on the walls, and if you want to show the room but then maybe overlay some of those canvases, a great way to do that is with Cloudinary.
Yeah.
So let's go over to our original image and show all the steps here, Daniel, so from top to bottom.
Sounds good. So first we'll go to our media library here, and we'll upload here through the upload button, and we have this file on our desktop. So we'll click here. We have named it our creative graffiti. We'll open it up. This will upload it. As you can see down here, it's being uploaded onto Cloudinary.
And you can see it's nice and fast, even though this is slightly a larger image. It's about 3 megabytes large, but uploaded within I think 5 seconds.
Exactly. All right, so now that the file's been uploaded into Cloudinary, we can click on here and it should open up this panel on the side. And if we click this, it will open it up in a new tab. And from here directly, we can manipulate the URL here to do exactly what we want. And so we'll do a couple steps here. First, we're going to adjust the width. And so we can do that with W underscore. We're going to adjust it to 700. And then we're going to adjust the height, which is going to be H underscore. And then we'll adjust it to 500, and then we're going to do C fill, which is going to maintain the aspect ratio, but still reduce it down in size. And let's do that. So we'll apply these transformations iteratively so we can see the changes as they're happening.
So now what we have to do is we have to create the right canvas border, so that way it starts to create that 3D aesthetic that we want.
Exactly. And so we're going to do that by, in a sense, copying the same image, but we're going to first copy it, and then we'll start to manipulate it as we go.
Got it.
So we'll apply the same transformation that we applied earlier with 700, height 500, and then this time we're going to C-fill, and this time we're going to add opacity 60%. You can choose whatever you like, but this is just to differentiate that there's a corner. So we'll do that, and then we can add a border. And so border is BO underscore, and we first defined the thickness that we want it in pixels, and so we're going to do a 1 pixel border. Then you can define the style, which would be like a solid line, and then we're going to define the color, which we're going to do it in RGB format, and so we'll do it white, and then we're going to specify the image that we want, and we do that with an L underscore, meaning layer. And so we'll just copy the same public ID that we had of our original image. And now that should create an exact copy of that.
And why is the reason that we're doing this? To me, it seems like what we're doing is we're taking this overlay and eventually we're going to use it as a part of the border. So that way it all looks in that 3D style.
Exactly. So we're just going to create that same replica of that image, and then we're going to cut it down to what we want and move it where we want it to be.
Got it. Well, that's a nice segue. So let's do that cutting for that right side.
Exactly. So our next step would be to, well, how big do we want that other border side to be, right?
Right.
So let's define those parameters. So we'll do width 20, so we're going to make it 20 thickness, and we're going to do a height of 600.
Now, why are we doing the height bigger than the height of the original image?
So the height is bigger than the original image because we're going to add a distortion, and when we add this distortion, it's going to compensate for the height.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and then from there we also need to add a crop to it.
Exactly. So we will crop this, and we were going to do C crop, and we want to do that because we don't want obviously the whole image, right? We only want a little piece of it, and then also we want to gravitate this towards the east in this particular, or the right. So we'll do gravity, G, which is gravity, and then we'll do east. Okay, and so this will create another little piece and shift it to the right.
And you can see there's our little sliver, and that's going to be the right side of the image once we finally apply it.
Exactly. Okay, so now that we have our piece that we want to manipulate a little bit more and add to the kind of right border box, let's first going to do what we call an angle and H-flip it. And so it looks, we're going to flip the image 180 degrees.
So now you can see everything essentially went at 180 degrees, just like we said. Okay, so now we have to add some distortions, right? So what parameter do we have to add first?
So the first parameter that we're going to add is going to be to the top left corner.
Got it.
It's going to be in an XY type of format. So I'll explain that. So first let's use the effect parameter, which is going to be E underscore, and it's going to be the distort. Okay, and so first we're going to pass the first argument, which is the X and the Y. In this particular case, we don't want to move it from the top left corner, so we're just going to do 0, 0.
And that'll keep it intact.
Exactly. And then next we're going to do another XY coordinate, but this is going to be to the top right-hand corner. And so in this particular case, we want to shift it 20 to the right, and we want to shift it down 20. So we want to create that distortion kind of effect.
And notice is that as we're doing this, this is not going to be an exact science for every single image. It's not going to be, you have to add 0, 0, 20, 20 to every single image. It's going to be more of a case where this is going to take some trials and errors. So this is a case where we did the trials and errors already, and we're adding it. But you might need to play with your X and Y axes when you're going through one of these types of demonstrations for your own images.
Yeah, depending on how thick you want the border and what kind of style you're going for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we're going to do the same type of thing, X and Y. We're going to apply 20 pixels to the right, and then we're going to apply 20 pixels down. But we're going to have to include the height of the quadrilateral that we have right now, which is 500. So we'll do 520.
Yep.
And then, so we want to keep the X in its place, which will be 0. And we want to distort, or actually keep it all in its place, actually. So 500. Right. We don't want to move any of that. So we just created this kind of shift to this quadrilateral.
That's right.
Yeah. So once we do that,
now you can kind of see it's distorted, but it also has that right frame side to it.
Exactly.
And then we're going to apply that now to the original image. So how do we go ahead and do that?
Sure. So now, we can go back to the URL here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to have to shift it a little bit to the right. Actually, so first let's shift this little piece to the right of our other image, which we'll do G east, and from here we'll do FL layer apply. And this FL layer apply, which is flags parameter, is saying apply this gravity east to the first layer you find, which is going to be this layer art creative graffiti. And so it goes up the chain and it finds that layer and it says, okay, we're going to apply that shift to that particular one. And so, and we'll obviously going to have to manipulate this a little bit, but we did it beforehand. So we will do this. So we'll shift it a little bit 20, and we will add some, we'll do kind of like a shift in the X and the Y. And so we've done this already beforehand, so it's evenly matched, right? And it looks good.
But as you're pointing out, it might take some playing with this, so that way your x-axis won't always be that -20 and won't always be the y-axis of 9. Exactly. You might have to change it based on the image and the sizing of it. So just know that you're definitely going to have to probably play with the x and y-axis, but don't think that it's just going to be replicatable every single time with the parameters we're showing here today.
Exactly.
All right, so now we need to build the bottom border because we have the right border, we have our original, and now we have to complete the canvas. Now what's great about this is that a lot of the same steps that we would have to have done for the right can be done here for the bottom. It's just essentially thinking about it as some of them might have to be flipped, but a lot of the same measures you're going to be taking when it comes to taking a sliver of the original and going and adding some distortion, flipping it around, all of that's going to be done in the same way.
Exactly. So, since we copy a lot of the same stuff, we'll copy here, which is we're going to make another identical layer that we had. So we can add that there. And now that we have that identical layer, we can also now crop the little piece that we want.
That's right.
Right? And so we'll do width 700, we'll do height of 20, and we'll do C crop because we only want to crop the little bottom piece. And we'll do G south. We want it to go down to the south.
And there it is.
Yep, exactly. So now we have that little piece we want to have down to the south. So now we'll have to do the same thing we did earlier, which we did the H flip when we were moving it to the right, but now we're going to have to do an A B flip. So flip it vertically. So B flip. Okay, and so then this will shift it. Okay, and then now that we've done that, we can apply the same step of distorting it.
That's right. And remember, this is a quadrilateral just like the other one. So remember, the way that we're going to go through each one of these parameters is top left, top right, bottom left. And so we'll add our first parameter with E distort and then move forward. But we don't want to change anything to that first parameter, so we'll keep that to the 0, 0.
Sure. Yeah. So let's do the effect parameter distort. And so the first coordinates of the XY is going to translate to the top left corner.
Yep.
And so we want to keep that as 0, 0. Right? And now we're going to do the top right corner, and we want to keep that X as 700, right? Because that's the width of our original image. And then we want to keep the Y at 0, because we don't want to do any shifts to that. We're only going to shift the bottom right hand and the bottom left hand. So the next XY coordinate is going to be to the bottom right. And so what we want to do there is we want to shift it 720 for the X, and then we want to shift it down by an extra 20 for the Y. And similarly, we're going to do that for the bottom left-hand corner. And so we're going to shift it to the X 20, and we're going to shift it to the Y 20. And so we'll do that. And this should distort the image.
And you can see it's slightly longer than the original one, and that's because of the distortion we added, changing it from 700 to 720.
Exactly. Okay, and then now we're going to do a couple tweaks that we already figured out in our particular case here, which will be Y minus 1. And now we're going to do G south, because we're going to want this layer to go all the way down to the bottom. And we're going to use the flags parameter, FL layer apply, and then that's going to look for the top layer. It's going to look for the first layer in encounters, which will be the one that we cropped out, and we're going to shift it, and it's going to say to shift it down. And so layer apply, and it'll look like this.
All right, so now we have our image. It looks pretty good, but there also is a little bit of white space that we have here that we've created through our distortions. And JPEG, of course, is not traditionally a transparent image. So how can we make sure that we add transparencies to it, but also make sure that it's loading with the right file formats based on what browser someone's using?
Exactly. So we have a fetch format functionality, which is F underscore parameter. And we're going to do F auto. And so this is going to grab browser information, and it's going to know whether to render the particular suited format for that browser. For instance, in Chrome, it would be WebP. In IE or Edge, it's going to be JPEG XR. Or most Safari browsers and some iOS ones, it's going to be JPEG 2000.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so some of those actually all support transparencies. And so in this particular case, we're on a Chrome browser. We do that, and it will make it into a transparent one.
And that looks perfect to me.
Exactly.
Now, let's say, for example, that you were trying to make sure that you were serving this at a slightly less quality, or at least a quality that's going to be what's best for web purposes. Right. You could always consider adding QAuto to that as well. In this case, we're just strictly focused on file format, but adding FAuto and QAuto is always a good idea and something to test as a good best practice.
Exactly.
And also, one thing to consider is, let's say that this was an image of somebody and you want to make sure that their face was the focal point of this. You could also add a gravity of G face to this, so that way they would be the focal point in the image, and that way we make sure that it also doesn't have the image face getting kind of slid over to the right or to the bottom, making it look weird. So lots of different options that you do have here, but as you can see, we are able to take this very flat image of this beautiful painting and make it into something that we can easily go and show the canvas opportunities for framing, aesthetic purposes as very easily as we can. All right, so now that you can see how Daniel and I did this, now go ahead and do this on your own, because with the power of Cloudinary, and of course you can do a lot of these things with a free account too, so you don't need to necessarily even have to be a paying customer to be able to try out all of the techniques and functionality that we showed you here today and apply them as transformations to your images. Of course, if you have any questions, Daniel and I both work in customer success. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to us via our support channels and we'd be happy to answer it. Of course, if you want Daniel by name, feel free to ask for that in the tickets. Anything else that you'd like to tell them? Excellent. Well, thank you for watching our tutorial, and we hope to see you using the Cloudinary system to your full advantage.